First of all, thank you for attending this breakout session. My name is Paulo. I'm the Sales and Alliances Manager here at Answer Modules. And with me is our CEO and Head of R&D, Patrick Vitali. He'll be the one that'll be presenting the actual demo portion of today's session. So our discussion will focus on the importance of forms in your ECM platform, but more importantly, the technology for building really advanced web forms. So why should you carefully evaluate the available technology for web forms, the technology that is out there? Well, the simple answer is that with the right tool, with the right engine, forms can be employed in many ways that go beyond a simple data input mechanism as forms are traditionally viewed. With the right technology, you can actually transform forms into very intelligent tools for data input, obviously, but also data processing at the same time. So they can essentially become the primary interface for any application or business process that you may have. So really, again, with the right technology, you're able to have a paradigm shift on how forms are viewed, how they're utilized. So no longer just being a way of inputting information, but also a way of acting upon and processing that information as well. So to enable this shift, obviously you need a very powerful engine that can add a host of different capabilities when we're talking about forms. So some of these capabilities could include a high degree of automation within the form, obviously in the interest of facilitating the user interaction, processing the information, or also guiding the user input along the way. Or you also maybe need the ability to have forms be utilized seamlessly across different devices, even in offline scenarios, or even by external users as well. But besides the enhanced capabilities from a functional perspective, form design is equally important to facilitate this shift to an intelligent form. Or say a very powerful, very intelligent form that no one wants to use, it's almost useless. So forms definitely need to have a very ergonomic, modern, and pleasant design in order to facilitate the end user's adoption as well as their productivity. And with our technology, Beautiful Web Forms, all this is possible. So Beautiful Web Forms is an enhancement, and I like to stress this point, it's an enhancement to the standard Content Suite form framework, and by far the most powerful form engine available. So with Beautiful Web Forms, essentially you can create forms for pretty much any scenario that meet pretty much every business requirement out there. So forms built with our solution provide end users with a high level of productivity. They're very intuitive, and they're the satisfaction level by the end users when utilizing our forms are obviously very high as well. So with Beautiful Web Forms, you can create really good looking, powerful forms for any scenario and any requirement as well. But before switching to the actual demo, let's take a quick look at some of the things that you can do with Beautiful Web Forms, so some of the functionality. First and foremost, with Beautiful Web Forms, you can incorporate custom fields within a form. You can add some very robust configurable validation rules, and you can also add automations directly within a form. Within a form, you could also seamlessly integrate external data sources within a form, or even maybe within just a specific form field. Forms created with Beautiful Web Forms are 100% responsive right out of the box. And they can also be utilized on mobile devices even when connectivity isn't present. So obviously a big plus for any industry or any organization that has remote workers, maybe that they don't always have 4G or Wi-Fi or connectivity. And a quite unique feature that is offered by Beautiful Web Form is really the possibility to utilize forms, to service forms as the main interface for workflows. So forms, again, don't need to be a way of just inputting information. They can actually be utilized as the primary interface, the tool in which end users interact with a workflow, and move that workflow along as well. But one of the greatest aspects of Beautiful Web Forms is definitely its low-coding editor. It's a visual drag-and-drop form builder. So thanks to this low-coding approach, thanks to this easy-to-use visual builder, forms can be prototyped pretty much on the fly. And this is really thanks to the vast library of configurable widgets that come with the builder. So it really helps both technical users and non-technical users to speed up the creation and the crafting of a form as well. And we'll see this during Patrick's demo. Now, so with that, I'd like to hand things off to Patrick, which will, again, demonstrate firsthand the capabilities of Beautiful Web Forms and essentially illustrate why it's the only form technology that you'll need on Content Suite.
Content Suite. I'd like to show you a few examples on how forms are actually utilized typically in applications developed with this technology. I have a set of examples that allows us to view the forms utilizing different use cases. So the first one is definitely the most simple one, is a standalone form solution. So forms that are meant for collecting information and help the user in doing that, so simplifying the way information is collected, and then the information is immediately utilized by the form object. So what a very unique capabilities of Multisuite is to turn form objects into active objects, so objects that can take action over the information they are collecting. So the best example for this kind of form is definitely this very simple statement of work or business agreement automation process that you might already have seen in other breakout session. So in this case, what we did was to define a form that allows users to collect information that should be utilized to compose a document. So it is a form meant for collecting the missing parts or the missing information that we are going to use to fill in basically a template that will be composed, merging together several Word documents together. And the form itself is basically made available everywhere in this portion of the repository, everywhere a document is present. And this is done through this our Smart Pages capability of displaying a Smart Page panel wherever you want, just configuring a new command and associate this new command to the fact that the panel should be open. And basically the Smart Page panel that we're going to open will contain the form that with the business logic for collecting the information and then immediately take action over the information collected. So let's see a demonstration. So I'm navigating my repository, finding the documents that I want to utilize. I select all of them. I click on this Smart Pages button, and I open basically this Smart Page panel that contains the form. The form is organized in tabs, so allows we have the possibility to organize the information that you are displaying in the form in various ways, and you can have very complex business logic behind how the different widgets are displayed in which order and which constraints are associated to each one of them. And the form is typically initialized from a data source. So having a form that is totally blank when open, it's quite unusual. So what you typically have is a form that contains already some information. And at a minimum, typically it is the current user or the current date or the current position, so where you were when you opened the form. In this case, it is completely blank, but we have this demo button here that allows us to engage the server-side scripting in order to fill in the form if we want. Before to do that, let's see how the form works. So we have validation in place, so we can define which are the required fields, which are, for example, email fields, telephone numbers. We can format the entry for each one of these fields the way we want. We can have very different widgets in the form. So from simple text field, date pickers of various form, radio buttons. You can have drop downs. So in this case, drop downs that fetch is information from a data source and utilize the information that they're fetching to automatically fill in other fields in the form. Keep them editable so that I can change the value here. So you can have what you see is what you get editor. You can have more complex structure. So if in your form you have, for example, a set, as in my case, I can utilize this widget to work very easily and nicely with sets and in a very, very productive way. So I can very easily insert new rows and very easily remove existing rows. And I will show you later how this widget can also be utilized to perform automatic computation over the value that I'm providing. And you can have more complex things such as this mechanism that allows you to search for the documents you want to utilize to compose your agreement, etc. So let's load in here some demo data. As you see, title has been automatically filled in, the customer has been automatically filled in, the scope has been filled in. So I was mentioning that this is what you see is what you get editor. So here I can have various kind of formatting. I can do almost whatever I want with this the editor. I can even copy paste images inside the editor if I need it. Service fees, SR, quite interesting widget because works quite nicely with Excel files. In fact, I can take everything here and I can, for example, update this to 200, and I can copy paste this information and I can copy it back to my Excel file and have everything updated. I can do, for example, 400 again, and you'll see that the information got updated and also the totals got updated. So it's very powerful widget, and I can insert a new row wherever I need, and it is super nice. And so as said, this is a standalone form. So I'm collecting the information. I want basically the form to produce a document. So I'm basically done here. So I've collected the information. I click on the create button. What the form is doing, the form itself contains the logic required to produce a Word document out of the information we provided. So this is a form that works by itself. Another example is a form that works inside of a workflow. So its more typical example is a form that you can utilize to start a workflow and to route the information across your company. So this is an example of a very simplified expense management application. So here I can create a new expense claim and I can provide some information. So some justification for my expense. I can have a area work order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can use validation against another system in this case, and 6 and 8 if I remember correctly. Yep. And I can have checks. So for example, that there was no receipt uploaded, so I can open my previous example and download the receipt so that I can upload the receipt to be associated to this expense. Now the system is happy. And we are basically starting an workflow, and we need to collect from the user side information, and we are offering him a wizard-like user experience. So it's filling in this page, moving to the next one. Here has the possibility to specify information about the requester. So we can change, for example, the requester. So I can fill in a request for in behalf of someone else. I can change who's gonna be the approver. So I can change my supervisor, and I will change the manager to myself, and I can specify information regarding the endorsement. And here is an example of formatted field. So you don't have the possibility to specify a format. The field is formatted for you automatically. And this was a form meant to start a workflow. Now we have a workflow running, and we can see it here. So it's waiting for us to take action. We can open the task, and we can review the information that was provided. We have the receipts in attachments. We have the possibility to specify some comment here that will be added to workflow comments. And we have the possibility to either approve or reject the request. So we can approve the request, and the request will be moved to the next step. And again, also the fact that here we are basically redirecting the user wherever we want is all part of the form. So the form, as said, can take the information and can take direct action, can engage the server with server-side scripting. And so we can basically react to the fact the form has been submitted and decide what to do with the data that has been submitted, or what to do with the user navigation. So we were redirecting the user basically again to the main dashboard so that he can complete the request, accept one step after the other, and that is complete. And that was an example of a form, medium complexity, I would say lower complexity, utilized within a workflow. And again, the logic here was totally attached to the form. So even the fact that at the end, the form is producing, the workflow is producing a sort of expense claim report. Also, this report was not produced by business logic inside the workflow, but directly attached to the form that we were looking at. So being active objects that can take care of this kind of thing directly. And this concurred to keep your workflow map very simple and to keep the business logic close to where it needs to be. This is an example, a set of a form utilized inside our workflow in SmartView again. And let me show you another example of a form that is utilized for different purposes in an application that is a mix of classic UI and customized UI. So here we have a form that is utilized to filter the content that we are seeing. So we have a form that was designed, for example, to allows us to search invoices that are just in Swiss francs or in Australian dollars or whatever. At the same time, in this context, you can have form meant for managing workflow steps. So to display different kind of information. So being, for example, able to approve or reject the request, or to request an advice. So you can organize it again, the information in the way you want it. You can organize easily the form and the widgets in various way. And again, this is an example of a form that works in the context of an application, keeping intact what we call the sandbox application. So sorry, the application sandbox. The fact that basically you never leave the application, so you always have the feeling that you are working within your application, even when you have to complete a workflow step. You are not leaving the application. So the interface that you're looking at is still part of the application, and everything you do with the form related to the workflow still happen in the context of the application with the user interface that we designed for this application. This is something that you can quite easily achieve with Multisuite, both in Classic and SmartUI. And the last example I'd like to show you is how form can be directly utilized, for example, in the context of SmartUI perspective, to directly enable the possibility to present information and collect information from the user. So what we have here is different connected workspaces that contains different information, and what we did was to associate a form to the one of the tab that is associated to this perspective. So the status form allows us to specify some initial metadata for this request, so we can very conveniently provide all this information, and we can perform some complex tasks. So for example, this request is associated to a project which is represented by another connected workspace of another type, and within this project you have technical documentation, and what the server-side scripting that is associated to the visual element of this form allows us to do is to, instead of creating a link between this request, this workspace, and a document within the other, we can utilize this feature to create a generation. So basically now there is some sort of hard link between these two objects, and nobody's authorized to delete the original object because there's this hard link pointing to this original object. So the concept of generation is quite useful in engineering projects. And what I can do that is utilize the form again to submit the information and update it. As you see, we have now the generation, the related document. And the form that is displayed here can be dynamic. In fact, this is the form corresponding to the status. So we have this request that is in status managing request. I can submit a request, and moving the workspace into managing the response. And now basically the status form that will be presented is no longer the one for collecting the request, the information about the request, but the one needed to collect information about the response. So this is, again, very unique to Multisuite, being able not just to inject a form into SmartUI to collect information to be utilized immediately, but also to be very dynamic. So in this case, to present different form on the basis of the status in which the workspace is. And still related to the way forms can be utilized, for that purpose, let me show you a very simple example how form can be utilized to collect data and present information in the system. So this is a very simple example in which we are displaying some data that we are managing through a form, and in the context of this perspective, we have these smart pages that is presenting a beautiful web form that we can utilize to change the value of the charts displayed here. So for example, we can see the number of product A, so I can take product A and add a bunch of products. So these earnings and these are products, so I can add, for example, $100,000 and 10,000 pieces. And once again, this was a form meant for being a standalone application. So the form is submitted and is directly utilized to display information. The interesting aspect here is that these are two smart pages, and both of them are actually displaying forms. So if you look at the two smart pages, you have the dashboard form and you have the charts, but charts is utilizing the widget for Smart Pages to collect the information, but the other one is utilizing the widget for form to actually present a real form to the user. And this is also very interesting because the form that you can create can be displayed in tile of various dimension. So you can have very complex layout. You can create very complex layout just working with the builder. So now that you have seen how forms can be utilized in various contexts and not just in workflow, I'd like to show you how they are built and how long does it take typically to build a form solution on Multisuite. So to do that, let me go into Multisuite example sandbox, and let's delete this one. So first of all, let me say that forms with Multisuite are created, not most of the time they are not created by hand, meaning that working with Multisuite, you typically do not create yourself the form template. You do not typically create yourself the view. What you typically put in place is some sort of automation for creating these objects on your behalf. But say that you want to stick to the standard. So what you can do is to create a form template. And once you have created the form template, what you typically do is to go inside the template, edit it, add all the fields definition. This is not the case with Multisuite. With Multisuite, you go straight to the views. You create a view, and which is the most natural way of working. So you go into the editing mode, and then you define all the widgets you want to utilize. And while you define the layout of the view, you also define the kind of fields that you need to collect. So say, for example, again, I need a user by login field, and this can be my requester field, can be a field type user, and then I can have a flat picker, which is a sort of date picker, and here I can have the request date, which should be date field. Then I can have, for example, I can have another user field, but this time we will have for example, managers, and will be still user field, but with higher multiplicity. And we can add a container, so a more complex widget. So for example, this hands-on table, I can have, for example, define a items set, and I can again associated a number of rows, and inside the items set I will create a quantity field of type integer, and I will create a description of type text field, and I will create a price of type real. And what I can do now is to associate this widget to the quantities, to the items, and I can tell the system I want the quantities to be quantity, and I want the description to be ask, and I want the price to be price, and I want the totals for the price, so I want the sum for this, and I want the columns to be 20%, 80%, 60%, and another 20%. And save and inject and save. And now eventually I can review what I was doing, so I can select the view template. So for example, this one, and I can toggle the preview just to see how it looks like. The form that I was building looks pretty nice. So what I want to do is I don't want to, I will open a new tab. I will actually create a form. So we'll make form, and here I can create a form and view. And now we have our form, so I can test it here. I see that I have to specify too big of an input in order to fill in the form, so I will reduce here the input requested, and both for managers. Okay, and now it's working nicer. I don't like this label, so let me change. So this will be items. Perfect. And I might want to introduce a separation here. And I will make it 12 columns. And now I might want the requester to pre-initialize it with the current user. And the request date, I will do the same, but I will also make it read-only. Okay, and now what I can do is to have another input here, which is the I don't know, the items number, and this will be my will be an integer field, and I will create it. So this will be number of items. Save. I can save it. Super nice. So I have now a number of items. I have the manager. I do like the fact that I need to add multiple rows to add multiple managers. So what I will do is to configure this widget to use a single input, so that I can basically select multiple people and utilizing a single input widget. And now what I want to do is to display this row and the table and the button only if number of items has been specified. So what I can do is to add a conditional. And here I can, for example, say only if items none is non-null. That will be displayed, and I will reload this anytime I change the value for number of items. So now if I provide something here, it actually reloaded. And now I can do a very simple thing actually. So what I can do is to add a bit of business logic in here, because I want the number of items to correspond to the number of rows. So here I can decide that I do not want my user to be able to manually add or remove rows. Okay. And on the other hand, I want that anytime the view is reloaded, I want to add this stuff. So far, as you've seen, we haven't touched any. I can move this down. We haven't touched any script. We haven't brought any sort of script, but we can do that. So to implement this requirement, I might need to write a tiny script. So what I will do is to implement this custom action. And this custom action will basically do something like form dot items. What the name of this field? Items num. So something like form dot items dot value, and all this as an integer times, I will do something like form and field, and this will be 1, and it will be items. Save, inject, and now I'm no longer going to reload, but I'm going to actually run that action. So F5, okay, is adding the values, and the I no longer see the menu here. And the other thing that I might want to do is to apply, for example, some validations here. So this can be a require field, so that when the form is displayed, I cannot submit the form. And I might want to add some standard button to allow my user to exit this form if they are not wanted to submit. So exit and exit and inverse typically, and log out. Where is it? Log out, and you typically have here exit, saving, save. So now my user can exit the form, and they're fine. And now my users might want to also have a, for example, a view title specified. So I can have the title specified, not longer form, but a simple title there. And now need the time to migrate to SmartUI. And in this case, what I have to do is to change, for example, to SmartView task, the view template, and we're good to go. So have the same form, same capabilities. Difference is that you can now work with the form in SmartUI. And as said, what you typically do not do is to create this form template and the structure manually, as said. So a typical way you create them is receiving help from the system. So there are a bunch of tools that comes with Multisuite that can help you in setting up a form application. So there's in CS Tools, you have the Beautiful Web Form Studio. Beautiful Web Form Studio allows you to create a form application very quickly out of an Excel definition. So you can download an Excel definition, and this an Excel file. This will allow you to create the form structure, so the form template, the form view, and all the required script. Or you can even move forward and utilize the capabilities of the Content Script engine, so the scripting engine, to create automation around the way you are creating forms applications. So even in the way the view is created. So here is an example where we have a routine definition, and what we basically created is a solution that not only creates the form template and the view and the objects that are required to manage the form, but also creates, based on specific business logic that we have defined and codified in a script creates a desktop view and a mobile view. So how it works? So simply from this workspace, the idea is to have the possibility to have inspection routine workspaces. They are determined out of the document that you want to inspect. And inside this document, there is basically a routine definition folder in which you can drop your Excel files containing the routine definition. And the routine definition is nothing but an Excel file containing information related to the, in this case, the question you want to ask the user in a simple the kind of question you want to ask, and this will basically translate into the set of widgets you want to utilize to create this view, and automatically the way these widgets will be formatted. So what I can do is to just drop the file in that folder. And again, what the system is doing is bootstrapping the entire application on my behalf. So it's not just creating the form template, the view and the form object and all the scripting that are required, is actually creating the complete application. And so I can create a new routine basically now in a way of just, in a matter of just changing an Excel file. So if we reload this space, you will see the Excel file has been created, but not only that. So a template has been created, a form has been created, a new couple of actions that are made available directly at the workspace level. So I can go and edit the desktop view for the routine associated to this equipment. And the desktop view will contain the question that we have created. And what I can do is just to pick a view template, an appropriate view template, and that's it. The application is ready to be utilized. So what I can do is to go inside the routine and just opening it. I can fill in the routine with all the answer I want, and I can submit it, and that will generate a record that will be picked up directly by the dashboard. And the nice thing is that you can utilize form also to create PDF files. So what we are doing right now is have another view created inside the same template, and the second view is utilized just for printing purposes. And this is the simplest example. You can bring this to more complex level, such as, for example, in which you have same concept with the difference that the PDF is still produced out of a form, so one single line of code, but this time the form is slightly more complex. But still, even this PDF page has been designed with the form builder, so with drag and drop editor. So takeaway for this session is forms are everywhere. Wherever you have the need to collect input from your users, you need a form, and form are not just part of a workflow application, can be utilized in various contexts to reduce the amount of interaction a user needs to have with the system to get the job done. They are superb interface whenever it comes to collect information. Having this dynamic and powerful form can really simplify the way users are providing you the information and allows it to reduce dramatically the amount of errors they do when they have to enter some information. And again, they are the gateway towards a lot of different kinds of automations and different kind of applications that you can implement it with the server-side scripting that comes with them. Once again, I suggest you to have a look at the other breakout sessions, because a couple of examples that we have just surfaced in this one are discussed more in depth, and you might find them useful as well. Thank you so very much for your interest.